Hello, welcome to Six Tackles with Gus on the eve of what promises to be the most thrilling and unpredictable NRL Finals series ever. We are here thanks to our friends at Tab and we are pumped. Storm v Dogs Friday night. Warriors versus Panthers 4pm Saturday. Sharks versus Roosters 7:30 Saturday, and then the Raiders against the Broncos at 4pm on Sunday afternoon. Every final live and free on 9 and 9 Now. Phil Gould, welcome to the very best time of the year.
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
I have to say, I am genuinely excited about this first week of finals.
Should be.
What a lineup.
Yeah, I always said it's the best time of the year. It's what we play for. We get through the 24 weeks of home and away football, all the ups and downs and travel and everywhere we go and the weather we play in and the injuries we sustain and everything else that we argue about during the year, but then it gets to this time, September, and this is the best time of the year.
I think it's the most evenly matched suite of round one finals I can remember. Because any result could happen and you would not be surprised.
It's unpredictable, absolutely unpredictable. You couldn't tip with any certainty. Everyone has a case. Some are going well. Some probably weren't going as well as they were. Some are up and down a little bit. Others are looking for a bit of form. There's a few injuries and suspensions around. All adds to the intrigue. And we've got a lot of football to get through over the next month. Let's hope the players get to decide the results, that the referees stay out of it, that the judiciary stays out of it, and just lets them get on and find who the best team is.
I'm sure they will. You've been warned. You've had a big week.
Why is that?
You've signed a lucrative new contract.
Oh, right. Yes. Very nice. Yeah.
Is there any truth to the rumour that part of the contract is you'll be cryogenically frozen at the end of this deal?
I'm quite sure that's not.
And they'll thaw you out when they've got the solution to eternal life and you'll be back in charge of the Dogs.
Quite sure that's not the case. But however, when you say that, it's remarkable. Our chairman, Adam Drewsey, who's very much, he runs an AI company, and he's telling me that all around the world, collecting the IP, collecting the experience of great leaders in all forms of business and sport and whatever, that they can collect all that information and put it into AI and have access to it into the future going forward. So if Sir Alex Ferguson, if Manchester United wanted to tap into Sir Alex Ferguson for the next 100 years, they could go and do it.
So how would they grab his?
And it's the same. It's the same, with the big companies like your Amazons and your Googles or your Apples and all that sort of thing. So taking out the IQ and so if we wanted to harness everything that Cameron Ciraldo has provided our club as a coach, we can actually have Cameron Ciraldo or a version of him as an advisor for the next 100 years.
So how do you do that? How do you tap it, or how do you extract someone's IP?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Do you know how to? Can you explain that?
No, that's not my job. Right. That's not my job. Yeah, but no, it was a great show of confidence from the board of directors at the Bulldogs to extend the contracts of our coach Cameron Ciraldo and our skipper Stephen Crichton, and it's an invitation for everyone to work hard, which they are doing at the moment, and it shows that our club is on the right track. We've still got a long way to go. I keep saying to people we're nowhere near where we're going to be, but we're certainly on the right track, I believe, and the board of directors have been very strong in that over the last few years. We've come from a long way. I think back to 3 or 4 years ago, we've come a long way in a short space of time, and it's a credit to our people. Our strength is the people that we have in our jobs there, and everyone's doing a wonderful job. Did you negotiate with yourself? No, I didn't do the employing.
Oh, right.
It took 2 minutes, to be honest, and it was some time ago. So.
Oh.
Yep.
You've had a big week, not just with your contract, because I think you might be moonlighting as an entertainer on the side. Well, on 100% Footy on Monday night, you had the crowd eating out of the palm of your hand.
And the bloke down the end there recently re-signing with the Bulldogs till 2031. The top dog. 2031. Boy,
don't start me on the match review committee, and don't. but don't you think? I've been drinking out of the toilet all week. It's been
And the top dog himself has done a deal with the Dogs to be there till the end of 2031.
You've never been more popular. What about your comedic timing and everything? Gee, you're on fire.
No, they've got a bloke there that makes the crowd cheer and do all that.
Oh, no. No.
He gets some.
Did you bust your neighbours up for the show or something? Or is that a crowd? Is that the crowd we had the other week at the podcast?
No.
It's the same crowd.
Yeah, well,
they love you.
It's been quite interesting. The live podcast was interesting, but that had a real old footy show feel about it the other night. 100% Footy, a little show that's been going for a long period of time, and we used to sit around a round table and talk about rugby league, but it's morphing into something a little bit bigger now. And
it was an excellent show. You all did a great job.
Yeah, and it's and it sort of brought back many memories from the old Fatty Vorton footy show days. Being in front of a live audience and having guests in and all of that. So yeah, it was a good feel about it, and the crowd were good. And we got that right through the finals this year. Whether or not that continues into next year, I don't know. But certainly during the final series, they're pumping it up. It's in a viewer-friendly time slot now, which is good. We used to be on late at night, and you just pick up the headlines the next day.
If you'd like to be part of the audience, the minibus leaves Shark Park at 6 o'clock on Mondays. The Phil Gould Express. Very good. Coming up, we're going to complete our teams of the year. We did the backs last week, raised a few eyebrows, which is the whole point of the exercise. We'll do our forward packs today to finish off our teams. We'll look back at some of the predictions that Gus made at the start of the season. Some were very good, some were a little wide of the mark, although there's been nothing easy to predict this year. Plenty of Ask Gus questions, and we'll have a deep dive into Gus's previews for our 4 finals games. It is a big podcast today.
Dear, oh, dear, oh.
Do you reckon Fatty would come on and talk to us on grand final week? Let's ask him. We could have Fatty as a guest.
Sure he would. He's hard to get off the golf course these days.
He's in South Africa at the moment playing golf.
Is he?
Yeah. Let's ask him. That'd be a great coup, getting the Fat to talk grand finals.
Funniest man ever.
The best. One of the nicest too.
Takes a smart man to play the fool. I always said that about Fatty.
Yeah.
He ran that show for a long, long time. Like that prime time entertainment show, that used to be your Kennedys and your...
Must watch.
That was incredible stuff.
The Raiders enter the finals as the team in the best shape.
Well, they're in great shape, aren't they? Very little has gone wrong with their season at all. They've been consistent performers all the way through. Only lost a handful of games. You don't count the last one because they rested all their players. Couldn't have gone better for them. They got through the hard part of the early year with all the travel and no buys. I don't think they had a buy up until midway through the season. Then they've had 3 buys in the last 12 weeks, where a lot of other teams have had to go half a season without a break, which is why they were resting players at the back end of the year. Then they've got a 4th bye last week because they rested their players for the last game against the Dolphins. It can't be going any better for them. Honestly, it can't be going any better for them. They're the minor premiers for a reason. I keep saying to people, you've got to believe your eyes. They're going to be extremely hard to beat. They're only 1 win away from a preliminary final. They're only 2 wins away from a grand final.
Well, that's exactly right, because you talk to everyone about the finals race. Everyone's got their own opinion. Everyone's talking about, can Melbourne come good? Can the Dogs replicate their early season form? Can Penrith come from outside the 4? No one's talking about the Raiders. Like they've won the minor premiership by 2 wins. Like they're the obvious pick.
Yeah.
They played home this week. Should they win, which isn't going to be easy, they get their prelim in Canberra.
Yeah. They're perfectly placed, absolutely perfectly placed, and they deserve it. And they're going to be extremely hard to beat, and they're fit and healthy. A lot of other teams are carrying some injuries and they're missing some players, so it's going to be a fascinating series. It's the survival of the fittest, really, and if you wanted to look at the fittest at the moment, Canberra in the best shape.
The Knights are in for a long rebuild.
Well, every rebuild is long. You've got to take a long-term view towards it, and I think that's what the Knights are probably trying to do this time. The strength of the Knights club, and people talk about history, trying to, it's hard to replicate history, but there is no doubt that the Knights have been at their best, or they've had the most enjoyable and successful periods where they've had a group of young players come through and play together, and sprinkle that with a few little marquee signings, and I think that they've gone down that road a little bit more. They're looking for more value in their purchases and their salary cap, and it takes a long time. They've got to find a coach now. They've parted ways with their coach, so rebuilds take a long time. They take a long time, and that it's not just a direct line to improvement either. It goes up and down, and You'll improve for a couple of years and you'll go backwards a little bit, and you'll improve for a couple of years again and you go backwards a little bit. And then all of a sudden you get your systems right, your people right, and and you've got to happen upon a really good core group of young players. That's the key. They don't come along that readily. You've really got to work hard at it. And if you can be blessed and sometimes come across a group of players that are just at the right stage of their career and have got the right talent levels and they can stick together for a long period of time, then that's where you have your most success. And that's, I think, where the successful clubs have got it right over a period of time. And success is fleeting. Success doesn't last forever. You've constantly got to keep working at it. You've got to keep nurturing it. You've got to keep watering the garden. You've got to keep planting the seeds. All those sort of cliches, and it's a never-ending business. And Newcastle Knights, no one wants to be. If you look at their record over the last 10 or 12 years, I mean, there's a number of wooden spoons in all of that, and they just haven't been able to get themselves out of that. They've also played some finals football too. I think Adam O'Brien made the finals.
Made 4 times.
4 times in his 6 years. So
the one thing that's different about this rebuild, though, to others, is they have 2 very expensive marquee players on the roster.
Which means you've got to find value everywhere else.
Yeah. So ideally...
There's nothing wrong with having 2 really expensive players on the roster. I mean, the Melbourne Storm run a model where they got 4 or 5, and then everything else is very good value and young fellas coming through, and they get a lot of players down there and improve them into the system. But if you're playing with those champion players, they improve quickly. There are different models along the way, but Newcastle, the strength has always been, they believe, in their development, in the junior base they've got up there, in the giant junior league and nursery that they've got, and nurturing kids coming through. Even as big as it is, it's not enough. They've still got to recruit, and you've still got to recruit kids into that system. It's a long journey. They've got Peter O'Sullivan there, who's very experienced and he's very, very good. But there are some other things they've got to get right as a club.
I mean, Newcastle teams over the years have been really hard to beat, and they aim up and they give their all. Well, they've struggled in that area towards the back part of this year. They finished the season with 9 losses in a row?
I mentioned this the other day. People talk about where you start with a rebuild or what does a rebuild do. I mean, at the end of the day, if you go into a club and they're really struggling and they're saying, we want you to fix it, the first question I ask is, what's it look like when it's fixed? What do you want it to look like? What do you want your team to represent? And I did this on Sunday in the coverage. I said to Andrew Johns, I said, what do you want the Knights to look like? What's in the Knights' DNA, or how do you want to be perceived as a football club? Because then you get an idea as to the people that are going to coach it, the people that are going to recruit for it, the people that are going to develop the talent, the type of player that you're looking for, the type of characters and personality you want within the club, and how you want to create the DNA of your club. And every club in some form or way is a little bit different. They all have different size nurseries. They all have different sort of demographics. So the Newcastle Knights firstly have to know exactly what it looks like when it's fixed. When it's fixed, what's it look like? What do you want it to look like? And then that gives you a clue as to where you're going.
Well, you coached against the best Newcastle teams ever. What did you expect from them when you were preparing to play them?
Toughness, never give up, skill. I always related skill to the Newcastle Knights. Football knowledge. The Newcastle Knights, right from the very beginning, the very first coaches they had were students of the game. They wanted to teach the game. A lot of them were disciples of Warren Ryan and his football of the 70s and 80s. And they set the club up with a great platform early on, but something that reflected the demographic of the people who supported it, hard-working, blue-collar people, and understanding their importance and who they're playing for and how they wanted to represent that. And Newcastle teams were tough, they were skillful, and they knew the game. They knew the game. In all my time in rugby league, I always say this to people, in all my time in rugby league, I've never met a bad person out of Newcastle, football or otherwise. I've never met a bad person out of Newcastle, honestly, in all my time. You'll have players from Newcastle come to play with your club or coaches or whatever, that sort of thing. They're all great people, and it's a great town. I was at a city, probably a city. It's a city. It's a great town. It's a country town. And it needs a club. It needs a team that reflects its people. And that's how it wants to be. Andrew Johns said, I want an attacking team. Well, that's one part of it. But that's what Newcastle were always good. They were always good skill factor, even with the lower grades coming through. They had a great skill factor and a great knowledge of the game, and you had to think your way through it, and you had to be good to beat them.
The game needs a strong Newcastle club.
We need a strong every club. Every club needs to be strong, but Newcastle's important to Newcastle. Newcastle's important to our game. And we need them all to be very, very good, or we need them to be the best that they can. We don't want clubs that are struggling. Having said that, like this competition at the moment, I said it a couple of times during the year, the bottom teams in the competition, or those that have finished at the bottom of the ladder, they're not the bottom teams, are the best they've been for years, I think. Usually you've got a few teams at the bottom that just can't compete and they struggle and they can have some very bad days. But really, even if you look at the team run last, Titans can beat anyone at any time. And that's the beauty of our competition at the moment. Nothing is guaranteed.
The Perth Bears, should target Trai Fuller.
Well, they should be targeting players that give them great value in the salary cap and that can help them excite the fan base across there, and that can have the ability to, I think in the early stages, produce points. And Trai Fuller is one of those sort of players. I mean, he's been around a while. He's not a spring chicken.
I think he's 28.
Yeah, and I think his sort of football suits what the Dolphins are doing at the moment. And I doubt that he'd be an overly expensive sort of purchase, and they've got to look for players like that can get across there and provide a little bit of X factor for their team and the fans that are going to come out to watch. And it'll be interesting to see how the Perth Bears set themselves up, what sort of football team they want themselves to be, and that will be reflected in the recruitment of players. But I think Trai Fuller would fit into any roster, really. He's probably not a number one selection at fullback for a lot of the sides in the competition, but for a side like the Perth Bears, it'd be a good place to start.
Well, he's added such value. Well, he's such importance to that Dolphins team that they pushed the hammer into the centres to include him. So he's certainly dangerous. Darren Locky's purchase of the London Broncos is a great sign for the rebirth of the UK Super League. So it's been confirmed this morning, that Darren and his business partner have committed to a 90% stake in the London Broncos, and the other 10% will be purchased by Gary Hetherington, who has a great reputation for being a great administrator in rugby league in the UK.
Yeah. So 12 months ago, Gary Hetherington was meeting people out here in Australia and actually approached us at the Bulldogs on a number of occasions. We met them in Vegas earlier this year, talking about what was going on with the English Super League. There was still a lot of uncertainty there, but Gary's been a long-time boss at the Leeds club, which has been a very successful club. The football in the football in England is in the north of England. It's not in London. The London Broncos was created by the Brisbane Broncos many years ago, and it's not traditional rugby league territory, and it's always been up and down a little bit in its performances, and it's been in and out of the top grade, and it's not in the top competition at the moment, but there's a whole revamp of the Super League competition in the UK going on at the moment. And Gary was looking for investors. He was looking. He's done a lot of work on the commercial side of the business there, which has never really been set up properly. And he was looking for controlling partners, for financial controlling partners, and was approaching a number of NRL clubs out here, a number of high-end net worth individuals out in this country, and he's certainly done the legwork to get along. And then there was some confusion sometime after that about just what was going to happen with the English Super League. And there was a talk of a breakaway league and new sort of franchises coming in. And right at the moment, I'm not up with where it is, and I don't really know what it's going to look like as it goes. But you're hearing plenty of noises out of there. All of a sudden, we're starting to get calls from a lot of the English clubs. I might probably field 2 a day from English clubs looking at players out here to buy and purchase, and who can we let go and who can we spare, etc.
So what does that tell you?
It tells me that there's something happening in the UK, that something big is happening. They've been struggling because the salary cap down over there is not all that big. I think it's only around about £4 million or something like that, or is it less than? I think it's less than that. It might be less than that, £2.5 million, something like that.
No, it's not a lot of money for a big squad.
And the broadcast rights don't cover the salary cap I think there's about an £800,000 shortfall between what the broadcast rights are for the clubs. The broadcast deal wasn't very good for them the last time it went around. Obviously they battle with soccer and rugby and everything over there, and it's not the number one sport in England by any stretch. But the UK Super League has an importance in rugby league, and certainly has an importance for international rugby league and us out here. So we need it to be successful. That's why I've said that the NRL, should have looked at buying it or investing in it, or certainly having a partnership with it. And I don't know where that's gone at the moment. But you're right, Gary Hetherington, he a great administrator, a long-term administrator, very successful, has gone across to the London Broncos. He's secured ownership of it, and he's now sold, what you're saying there, 90% to Darren Locky and his partner, which is an extremely positive move. That'll give it certainly plenty of profile and plenty of weight behind it, and plenty of attraction for players to go across there. London's a great place. It's a wonderful place to live. It's not rugby league heartland.
No, but it could.
But they do have what Gary was telling me is there are a number of academy programs around rugby in the area,
right,
and they can't all make those rugby teams. He's going to set up some satellite rugby league academies to help nurture kids to come through as London Broncos. He said a lot of the kids that play in the North England started out in London as rugby players and went up there at a young age to play rugby league. So the thing about the two codes at the moment is that they're so fundamentally different that players just aren't suited to both. Some are more suited to rugby and some are more suited to rugby league, and they've just got to find where their niche is. So there's always an opportunity for recruiting young kids out of rugby programs. They'll be in rugby colleges, rugby schools, or rugby, because they're not actually suited to rugby. And the same as rugby league. There are some kids that we've got in rugby league programs that would excel in rugby programs. The games are just a little bit different at the moment. But Darren Lockyer, that's a big investment, and I'm sure he's done his due diligence and what have you. We decided at the Bulldogs that wasn't for us right at this time. I'm not saying that down the track we won't look for an affiliation with a UK Super League club. I can see some advantages in that, but we really want to see how the UK or the new UK Super League looks and who's in it, and what the broadcast rights deals are, and then whether or not there is a possible partnership there with someone in academy programs and transfer of players and everything as well, which I think would be really healthy for the game.
Well, it'd be exciting for the game.
Yeah, so
I could just see how exciting that is if you were to have genuine synergy between the NRL and the Super League.
100%.
If the Bulldogs had a solidified affiliation with a club where Bulldogs fans can support Canterbury, but could also support whoever, your English, counterpart.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd spark huge interest from an Australian perspective, and then flow-on effects with broadcast rights and stuff.
Yeah. Like he wanted to call it the London Bulldogs.
Yeah, there you go.
Or the London Broncos or the London Warriors, whoever he was talking to. I imagine he was talking to a number of NRL clubs at the time, but he was extremely passionate about it. I spent 5 hours out of these. He's got a daughter that lives out Picton Way or Cobbity Way out there, and I went there one Sunday. I spent 4 or 5 hours with him just talking through it. And his wife has run Super League franchises across there as well. I mean, he and his wife have been heavily in the UK Super League for some time. So he had it all worked out what he wanted to do. It just wasn't the right time for us. But I'd imagine there'll be more of this with UK Super clubs signing up partnerships with NRL clubs, and it's only a good thing for the game. And the same thing, investing in the Pacific Islands and investing in New Zealand. We've got to invest more in New Zealand. There is so much more that can be done in New Zealand. We've got academy programs across there in Christchurch and Auckland, and so too to the big guns like your Broncos and your Roosters and your Melbourne Storms, and Manly do some stuff across there. And I guess all clubs do a little bit, but there is so much more to be gained out of New Zealand. Pacific Island nations, getting kids up to speed at a young age so that they're not so far behind when they come out to Australia or when they play against Australia. And, I think PNG can play its part in that. And opening up new franchises here opens up more opportunities. But the game as a whole has got to keep investing in its future. It's got to keep investing in development, and it needs to invest in the English Super League and help those Super League clubs be strong. And we've got a Kangaroo Tour at the end of the year. Back in my day when I played, the Kangaroo Tour was the big thing. It come around every 4 years. There was a tour the Kangaroo Tour to England, and in between that, they'd come out to Australia. So there was a British tour of Australia every 2 years, and then we'd have to go off. The Kangaroo Tour was so great. It was such a big thing. and you look forward to it. It might only happen once or twice during your career, and the chance to go on that kangaroo tour was such a special time. And English Rugby League was so strong back then, and their teams were so good.
Well, it's back this year, but an abbreviated version. Payne Haas is already one of the game's greatest ever front rowers.
Yeah, well, you can't argue with that, can you? Interesting or brilliant interview on 100% Footy the other night with Payne Haas and talking about his family life. People don't understand where these kids come from and what they'll go through in their lives. And, for every Payne Haas, there's plenty more that have big stories to tell. And, rugby league has been a saviour for them. Rugby league has been a saviour for their family. And there are some kids, unfortunately, that don't have great beginnings. They have come from very humble backgrounds and very difficult backgrounds. And rugby league is a saviour for them. Our game is so great on many, many levels. We get to see that. People don't get to see that. But to get an insight into Payne Haas and where he's come from and the person he is today, despite all that, was an amazing story. Football-wise, he's genetically blessed.
Where do you rate him amongst the props you've seen?
Well, statistically, he's the best ever. Statistically, I mean, you could drop him into any era and he would dominate where he is. Statistically, he's the best ever. Now, he doesn't have any premiership rings and he hasn't won, so he's still got a ways to go, but on sheer output of work and the work that he does, statistically, he's the best ever.
He's 25.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, like in recruitment and development, they go off to schools carnivals and they go off to these carnivals where all the player managers get out there and all the talent scouts get out there. And every now and then they come back talking about one player. And in that year, it was Payne Haas. Everyone came back talking about Payne Haas. And when he was very, very young, he went round to a number of clubs, might have gone to a dozen clubs looking at their systems. We just opened the academy at Panthers. So around 2016, he walked into Panthers with his father and his manager and sat down and had a chat. But he did with everyone, and it was the Broncos who obviously lured him there with a very big package for a teenage kid at that time. But everyone was really keen to see where that went. But in that year, when they were going to those scouting games, when they're going to scouting that junior football and school football, he was the one they all came back talking about. In another year, it was Bevan French. Bevan French was the big name they all came back talking about.
Yeah, you've told me about him.
Yeah.
I remember being up there at Suncorp a number of years ago. I'm fairly sure he was playing for the New South Wales under-19s, and I think Freddie may have been coach back then.
Yeah, could have been.
He might have been playing. He might have been 17 or something, or 17 or 18. Payne Haas. He was too good for him then.
Yeah.
Well, he was astronomical.
Yeah.
And to see the way he's developed, I'm glad you said that because his stats. There's no point reciting them all here. They're completely off the charts.
But that's unfair to past generations too, and the great forwards we had back then. But in this day and age of full-time professionalism and high performance managers and full-time staffing and sports science and everything else that goes with it, and the diets that they have and the supplements that they have and the training that they get. I mean, my God, if players from the 60s, 70s and 80s ever thought that rugby league would look like that,
yes,
that they, back in those days they worked for a living. Football was a second job and there was no training, there was no high performance, there was no medical, there was no physiotherapy, there was none of those sorts of things. There was no knowledge on diets or training methods and I can talk to you about the dark old days, how things were back then. But we thought we were doing our best,
Well, Glenn Lazarus said on Monday night that if he was given a choice of who he could play with in the front row, he'd pick Payne Haas. So that's the ultimate compliment, which segues beautifully, Gus, to our 6 tackles team of the year forward pack.
Okay.
Props.
So, we know the best players in the game who's done a great job for their club as front row forwards this year. I'm just thinking through them as I go. Okay.
Would you like me to throw some names at you?
No, I'm thinking. I'm allowed to have thinking music.
You can think.
Yeah, well, if our producer could produce some thinking music, it wouldn't be so much dead airspace while I'm thinking. I'm just thinking. Right? I'm giving it plenty of thought.
Insert thinking music.
Yeah, obviously the Payne Haases of this world, come to the fore, but I'm thinking of players that have done a really good job. I think Joseph Tarpany has done a wonderful job for the Raiders. Absolutely wonderful job. I know that Max King has done a wonderful job for the Bulldogs. I'm not going to pick Bulldogs players, but I just wanted to mention his name as well. I think James Fisher-Harris has really helped, and I think Barnett was a big loss for them. His early season form was outstanding. We look across, Fanua Blake obviously was a new buy for the Sharks, and he's done a good job. Moses Leota, he lost his partner, James Fisher-Harris this year. He's had to shoulder a lot of the burden up there himself, Moses Leota, and hasn't missed a beat, and the Panthers are there again. Roosters, we've seen the emergence of a couple of really good young players there coming through. Lindsay Collins has been a good player for his club. Front rowers of the year. Junior Barlow has done a wonderful job for Parramatta and their resurgence in what they've done there. Payne Haas is probably an obvious, and Joseph Tarpany, I think, would be the two players I'd pick as front rowers of the year. Is that close?
Yes.
Yeah.
For those listening, Gus and I aren't colluding, by the way, with our selections. We're very independent because they were very similar, our backlines from last week, and I think our forward packs might be very similar too.
Okay.
But Gus isn't picking Bulldogs, so just remember that.
Well, I wanted to give Max a mention because he's been outstanding for us. He's really
played Origin.
Yep.
All right, it's hard to argue with Haas and Tarpany. A hooker. Gee, it's a good field of hookers.
Well, I'm going to go to the boy, the Shark, Brayley. I think he's been tremendous, and he's been a big part of keeping that club together and keeping that team on track. Been saying all year they're flying under the radar a little bit. They've kind of always been there, but no one's been rating them. And they've had a few losses in the middle of the year when you sort of raised your eyebrows, but they're still there. With them into the second last round, they were still a chance of finishing in the top four, and then they had a big win over the Bulldogs in the last game. And Brayley has been outstanding for them. A lot of the hookers have been really good. I think Wade Egan's been good for the Warriors. Connor Watson has been great for the Roosters. I don't know that he's an out and out hooker, but that's the role that he's played, and he's done really well. Harry Grant, obviously, well, he's the obvious, from the Melbourne Storm. But if I'm looking at someone who's made a massive contribution to their team, I think Brayley has held the Sharks together a lot this year, and he's so resilient. He never misses a game. His own game is improving all the time. And I think he's just been rewarded with a long-term deal, hasn't he? He's just got a new long-term deal.
That's been signed off, has it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so with the Sharks. So
they might have just unlocked him because he wasn't a ball runner, really. But they've encouraged him to run a lot more in recent weeks. Yeah. And the Sharks' form seems to have improved on the back of that.
Well, when you've got a half like Nico Hines and a fullback like Kennedy and you've got young Trindle in the 5'8", they're probably thinking that's where the ball needs to go all the time, but it helps the team enormously if your dummy half is proactive. If you've got a proactive game out of dummy half, it helps the team. It doesn't just have to be the dummy half, the hooker. My football, when I used to coach, I used to stress a lot about the importance of being able to attack out of dummy half. Every player on the field should be able to run out of dummy half. They should be able to run and pass out of dummy half. They should be able to pass out of dummy half. It's one of the it's the first, that's where everything starts, at the play the ball, and that's where your best opportunities are sometimes. And Brayley's just getting into his own there. But, I'd go with Brayley, the Sharks. He was good.
Back rowers.
I like the boy at the Melbourne Storm, Ali Couture.
He's a genetic freak too.
Yeah. Funny enough, when I was doing a little bit of work with the Warriors during COVID, I used to get up to their training sessions, and he'd just come across from rugby. He'd hardly played any rugby league at all, and was such an elite talent. He got into the NRL team straight away as a young fella, and I don't know what happened there. I'm a bit surprised they let him go or lost him, or Melbourne targeted him, which they're very, very good at doing, but he's been a raging for success for them down there. On both sides of the ball, and not only just running the ball and passing the ball, but jumping for the ball.
Catching the ball.
Kick chaser. Yeah. He's a real target. He makes things happen for them. I think he's had a great influence for the Melbourne Storm this year. Others, I love the kid at the Warriors, Halasima.
19 years of age.
Yeah. Kalao Matangi, is he an edge player now, or is he a front rower? What is he?
He's a front rower.
Yeah, he's had to burden a lot of the responsibility there at the Rabbitohs this year. Hudson Young for the Raiders has obviously been influential. and tremendous. Trying to think of a few others. There's been a couple of young fellas emerging towards the back end of the year.
How about Jacob Preston?
Jacob, well, he's a
Well,
bulldog.
he's a bulldog.
He's a bulldog, or Viliami Kickow. You know, but yeah, I'm kind of. I kind of think probably Ali Couture would be my first pick. Liam Martin has been very, very resilient, and I think played with a lot of injury this year for the Panthers, and played all the Origin games as well. So, yeah, on sheer potential, excitement, I'll go with Halasima. I'll go with Couture and Halasima as the two that have excited me this year.
I like it. Couple of Kiwi tearaways. And you got a number 13 to go.
Number 13. Okay. Warriors, that young fella, Aaron Clark, is it? The boy who came across from Gold Coast. He's been outstanding for them.
Don't pick him. I was going to pick him.
Well,
he was my bolter.
What a good player. I haven't said I'm going to pick him. He's a good player.
He's got enormous for him.
Yeah. I'm not sure who plays lock for the Raiders. Who would you say is their lock forward?
Well, Big Red.
Horsburgh?
Yeah.
Oh, he's been good.
They've got three props, really, don't they?
Consistent. Tino's playing for the Titans, and probably people would say he's one of the best forwards in the game, but they've run last. I mean, that's Pat Carrigan's done a great job for the Broncos and did a great job for Queensland.
The other one that is in contention because he's played both prop and lock, which are very similar roles, is Nafahu White from the Roosters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the lock role is a bit different. Do you want a ball playing variety like an Asai Yeo, or do you want a forward type, like a Tino? Tino's not a ball player. Tino's he's another front rower. Some treat the lock forward as another front rower. Some try to treat them as something like a half or 5'8". Back in the old days, my lock forward was always a ball playing 5'8" type. Like I like those sort of players. Fellas that could pass the ball and move the ball around, could play both sides of the field. And
Freddie played lock.
Had Freddie at lock at different times. Luke Ricketson played lock at various times. Had a fella at the Panthers in the early days called Colin Vandervoort, one of the greatest blokes I ever coached. Colin Vandervoort won a premiership with the Panthers. He was just a high work rate type of player. Lock forwards back in those days were very, very different, and they're very different these days because what happens is, a Jake Pravojevic comes along, or a James Graham, really. James Graham was probably the first of the front rowers that they used as a ball-playing sort of front rower, as sort of nearly like a halfback. And that sort of morphed into let's have a lock forward that looks like that. So your Jake Trebojeviches and those sort of players came along, and then Victor Radley was doing that a little bit earlier in his career, and everyone says, we want one of those. The boy from St. George was doing it as well. His name escapes me at the moment, getting old.
The boy from St. George?
Yeah. Jack DeBellin was doing it earlier in his career. He really improved himself there doing those sort of roles. Cameron McGuinness at the Cronulla Sharks is a high work rate, high energy type player.
He's an old school lock.
Yeah, Corey Horsburgh is he's just another front rower who gets in and hassles everyone.
Does he what?
Or you've got your Asai Yeos, who developed into a great ball playing lock forward. What do you look for? Yeah, so
Reuben Cotter.
Reuben Cotter, yeah. Yeah, well, they play more in the front row these days, and he's not a ball player. He's just a fast leg speed, getting through the field. Yeah, the bloke who's really impressed me the most has been the Warrior, Aaron Clark.
I thought I'd hidden one away. He's found my bolter, Aaron Clark.
I watch a lot of football.
You do watch a lot of football.
Yeah, way too much.
Well, we've got two variances if you're interested. I went Harry at hooker, only because the times he has been on the field for Melbourne.
He's the most influential hooker in the game.
That run of games he put together on the back of Origin 3, like where he just won games off his own, he's elite.
There's 16 other teams without Harry Grant. They've got to survive, haven't they?
He could win them the premiership.
Absolutely. Easily. Easily could win in the premiership.
He's probably going to have to. I mean, he's going to have to be immense throughout the finals.
Yeah, and I maintain the teams that attack best out of dummy half are the most dangerous. They're the most dangerous. And it doesn't always have to be the hooker that's the man that attacks out of dummy half. Everyone should be able to do it. I keep saying to them, even through all the academy programs, they've got to learn to run from dummy half, they've got to learn to pass from dummy half, and they've got to learn to run and pass from dummy half. And then they've got to learn to recognise the ruck, the speed of the ruck, who's at the ruck, whether the markers, who's retreating from the play of the ball, you know, whether the numbers are right on the short side or the longer side. You know, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but the more repetitions you give them, the more you talk about it, the more vision you show them, the more opportunities you make them aware of. See, the modern game, the defences are so good, and everyone you pretty watch every game. They all run the same sort of plays, don't they? They get towards the post and then they go left or right, and they've got their second man shapes, and they've got their other cross plays and all those sorts of things, and that doesn't always produce points. It's what happens after that produces the points, and whether or not you can disrupt them enough that on the next play you can hurt them. And generally you can hurt them out of dummy half or a smart dummy half going the right way at the right time, or teasing the markers and holding them up so your playmaker or your ball runner can do something. So that's the science of the game.
He's got many great attributes, but right at the top is how fast he is between the ears. And you saw that against the Panthers when he won at Golden Point.
He's constantly scanning. If you watch him, he's constantly scanning the opposition. Who's at marker? Who's at first defender? Off the ruck, whether they're retreating, whether they're set, have the numbers got right. He's probably getting calls from Munster, or getting calls from Hughes, or getting calls from Pappenhausen, or other people wanting the ball. He's got to decipher that straight away and whether that fits into what he's looking at. But he never misses a chance. And the other thing is, he's actually effective when there's a slow play of the ball. He can still run. He's so quick. He can still run on a slower play of the ball, which most dummy halves don't do. They wait for one marker or no marker or a quick play of the ball to get a bit of a run. And generally, they've got a player in their team they like to run on their play of the ball. Some players are really good at getting a nice quick play of the ball to give the dummy half time. So you can actually predict when the opposition hooker is thinking about running by who's running the ball prior to, or what play it is, or what tackle it is. And that again gets into the strategy of the game and that there. But with Harry Grant, there is no rhyme or reason to what he does sometimes. He has his favourites to run. He has his favourite parts of the field to run, but he will run from anywhere. He will instigate the attack from exactly where he is, or at least he knows if he runs a few strides, that's going to hold them up enough so that when Hughes gets the ball, or Munster gets the ball, or Pappenhausen gets the ball, he's going to have a little bit more space. And they only need a yard more space, or a little bit. They only need to make the defence sit on their heels, or the defence just to take the wrong step at the wrong time, in or out. And that opens the way up then for Munster or Pappenhausen and these fellas to do their stuff. So he's very, very effective. And that system, and like you're talking about salary caps, all their money is in that spine.
Yep.
The money is in their spine.
And two of them aren't playing on Friday night, by the way. Eli Katoa, I think he's probably the best back row in the game now, with what he's done the last couple of years. But I've gone with Hudson Young, who was probably the best player in the comp for the first half of the year. And not that he's deteriorated at all, but I think some of his teammates have caught up with him.
Yeah, can't bag that at all.
And you've gone Aaron Clark. So should I go with Aaron Clark? You know what? I'm going to go in the Fahu White.
Yep, he's been good. Different sort of lock forward. But his ball running has been tremendous. As coming through the pathways, coming through the lower grades, I remember him playing a lot on the edge. He was playing at right back row when young Sam Walker was just starting out. They had quite a formidable combination on the right edge, I think. The Fahu White running off Sam Walker as an edge back rower. And there was some thought at different times whether or not his pathway was blocked there. His manager used to keep saying to the Roosters, well, when do we get in? When do we get a shot at first grade? And they were kind of selling him as a back row forward. But as he's got bigger and stronger, and as the game has changed and the rules have changed, more and more of those edge players are finding their way into the middle, particularly if they've got strong constitutions and high work rates. And with the interchange it is, they can really just blow themselves out for 20, 25 minutes, have a spell, have a half-time break, come back and do it all again. The game has changed remarkably around those types of things, but he's been extremely good. Been extremely good. But so far as contribution to their team, Aaron Clark has been phenomenal. He can do any of it. He can run the ball. He's a really good advantage line runner. He's got good footwork. He makes meters. He's got a really quick play of the ball. He's got an offload in the tackle. And he's also a ball player. He can also play like a 5'8".
Well, in fact, he played a lot of hooker when he first came on the scene.
He's been terrific, absolutely terrific. It was a good pickup by then.
So I've been doing a bit of research because I'm calling that game along with the one in Canberra. So he played one game for the Warriors in 2017 and then didn't play again in the NRL until 2020 when he played with the Titans. I don't know what happened in those few years. He must have had a lot of injuries. But then the Titans had him for 4 years and he's gone back to the Warriors. I don't know. How did the Titans let him go?
What was the baseball movie, The Natural? Didn't Robert Redford do that?
You're going a bit back before my time. Robert Redford,
he's
140.
Haven't you ever seen the movie The Natural?
No.
Oh, you got it. It's one of the greats.
Is it?
Go and watch that, The Natural. Haven't you?
From what year?
You've never seen this movie?
No, I haven't. Well, I've got nothing else to do for the
You've
rest
never
of the
seen
day.
this
I might
movie?
to watch it. No, I haven't.
Oh, there you are.
I'm not a big movie watcher.
On a rainy Thursday afternoon, go home. It'll be on Stan or Netflix.
It's a
or something.
1984 American sports film.
Yeah, The Natural.
Okay.
Haven't you ever seen it?
No, I have not seen it.
I must be getting old.
Well, you've signed a contract for the next 15 years at Canterbury, so you can't get told. Oh, nominated for 4 Academy Awards, including. I do like Robert Redford. He's a very handsome man, isn't he? Even though he's about 110.
If our listeners could just email in and tell Matt Thompson that he's been missing out on one of the great movies. It's one of the great sports movies.
So why did you bring it up?
Well, you were just telling me that someone went missing for a number of years.
Oh, right.
And
yeah.
no one knows where he was.
I'm sure they do know where he was, but I just don't. Yeah.
Yeah. The Natural.
The Natural.
Yeah,
Okay.
It just reminded me of The Natural.
Okay.
He walks in as an old man into senior baseball and, I won't spoil it for you.
No. It was released in 1984. I'm sure the
Well, there were a lot
plot's
of good things in 1984. When were you born?
82.
Yeah, well, some not so great things happened
In the 80s. Yeah.
I don't really remember.
You want a comp in the 80s.
I don't remember the 80s.
You want a comp in the 80s.
Yeah, we won a few.
Ask Gus, the NRL season, it's finals time in the NRL season, and it is absolutely the best time of the year, and Tab has the best app in sport. Tab, we're on.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Brooke is obviously a very astute rugby league watcher, Gus, because she wants to know what you look for in talent to identify good habits.
What do we look for in talent? Talent's one thing. What I say to people, recruitment, you look for many things. Everyone's looking for talent. Talent's obvious, and talent's easy to see. Personality and character, their background, where they come from, their family life, their school life, their circle of friends, all these sort of things that we'll sort of tap into as we go. But if I'm going to watch a game of football, doesn't matter if it's under 14s or it's NRL or reserve grade or whatever it is, the thing I look for most is competitiveness. Absolute competitiveness. They want to compete on every play. That they like the collision, right? You can't play our game unless you actually like the collision. You've got to be able to like the collision. And for some, it's not for everybody. Our game is not for everybody. And it's, we make our game very, very hard to play. But in the formative years, they've got to like the collision. Then they've got to like to train. Because without the training, they're not going to have the body and the toughness and the resilience to play this game at this level. It's a long way to the NRL from junior league football and those areas. But it doesn't matter what age group, I look for competitiveness. And more often than not, we'll pick competitiveness and character over talent. More often than not. The talent's easy to see. And talent wins. Don't get me wrong. Talent wins. But being part of a team and being part of a system and being part of a club and being part of a culture and being part of a team environment and understanding the importance of the power of the team and what the team does for you is extremely important. And you've got to have that competitiveness. You've got to compete. When things are going good, you've got to compete when things are going bad. How you treat your teammates, how you speak to your coaches, how do you, when things are going good and going bad. It all sort of goes into the mix. It's not one thing. It's a whole factor of things. If I had to say what's my number one on the list, I'd say competitiveness. But then after that, they've got to be a good person. They've got to be intelligent. You're not going to play this game unless you're intelligent or reasonably intelligent. And you've got to be able to work hard. And sometimes talent doesn't work hard. That's just a fact. So talent's obvious. The other things that we look for are probably not so obvious, but for me, competitiveness is what I look for. And when it gets to the elite level, that might be the difference between who you pick in a team and who you don't. could be the difference of who you pick to play Origin and who you don't. I think there are some players that get to Origin on talent, but haven't got the competitiveness or the nature to enjoy the collision or to enjoy the toughness of the battle.
It's certainly what Queensland values.
Well, they've always valued it. That's why they've been successful at it. There are certain elements of picking rep players, of picking NRL players, of picking kids in your system, and unfortunately, kids that sometimes are super talented, like they've got great natural ability, unfortunately get ahead of themselves, or they're not prepared to do that hard work and don't necessarily like the collision and look for shortcuts and easy way outs, and they think that their talent can overcome everything. And talent will get you so far. Talent might even get you to the top, but if you haven't got a lot of those other factors, you will be exposed. This game will expose you.
Great question, Brooke. Thank you for that. Janelle, another of our lovely female listeners, is asking you who you think would be best suited for the Newcastle job. Now, you spoke to us earlier in the year about having met Brian McDermott.
Yep.
Why's his name not been thrown up?
I don't know. I don't know whether he's thrown his name in hat into the ring. I don't know. I really don't know. He was a successful coach in the UK Super League. And I think the reason we brought up Brian's name was that had a listener bring in as to whether or not a UK Super League coach would ever get a job in the NRL. And I said, funny enough, I've just had Brian McDermott reached out for a cup of coffee, which I get a lot of, coaches from other sides and assistant coaches and young kids emerging and all that sort of player managers. They ring up and you can go and have a talk to them about football or their career or where they are. They're looking for advice or a bit of direction, or, some are just looking for a bit of confidence. But Brian, I really enjoyed it. I've had several conversations with Brian. I really enjoyed his take on the game. He's a tough man. He's had a tough background. I mean, he's had a military background. He's had a football background, a coaching background. I think he's been good for a lot of elements for the Newcastle Knights. And he was sort of asking himself the question. He was kind of resigned to the fact that probably he would never be a head coach in the NRL. That was sort of his frustration a little bit, that whether or not anyone would take a chance on him to do that, which is why I put his name out there previously. But he impressed me as an individual, and he impressed me with his knowledge of the game. But he's part of the coaching staff up there. They've now run last the Newcastle Knights, and I don't think that's a reflection on Adam O'Brien. I don't think it's a reflection on anyone who's coached in that system. In fact, one of their assistant coaches is being touted as
Blake Green.
Blake Green is being touted as the future NRL coach. So, but I'm sure they've all worked hard. But I really enjoyed the conversations I had. Comes from a different background. He comes from the UK Super League, which the football is a little bit different, but. I think he was a fighter as well. I think he was a fighter of very, very high standard.
I believe so.
Yeah, in the military. He's got some great stories to tell. Doesn't tell you everything, of course. You've got to read between the lines with some of it. But
because I was just thinking, and I don't know anything about the guy, but if you're looking to re-establish a club and you want to build a framework around standards, etc., someone of his ilk would be someone that could really impress upon that club, I would think.
It's really an interesting subject about how clubs go about recruiting the people or recruiting the coaches to coach their club, because there are a number of considerations. One of them is, will that coach be able to recruit talent? Will by signing this coach, will we recruit talent? Will we retain talent if we, so if you suddenly brought, a Craig Bellamy to your club, it would be very easy to recruit talent and coaches and wherever you want. That's just using an extreme example. So, and there's everything in between. But I think what brings people more to your club is how it's perceived from the outside looking in, as to whether or not it's professional, whether or not it's it's got a family element to it, whether or not the type of football that they play, the kids that they produce, what sort of kids come through the system. How many players play at that club and improve? How many players go to that club and move on to other clubs? I mean, there's a lot of elements where your club gets judged, and results. Your club gets judged on results, and so too the coaches. But, so it'll be an interesting selection for them of what they want. And that comes back to, again, what it looks like when it's fixed. What do they want Newcastle to represent? What does it mean to be a Newcastle Knight? What sort of football are you looking for? And that should be then what sort of coach they want from there. So There's plenty of fellas out there can coach, but it's a big step to being an assistant coach to a head coach. I've spoken to a lot of head coaches who were really good assistant coaches, got a role as a head coach, and at the time they're about to lose their job or they've lost their job, they come and sit down, and when you go through it with them, they can coach. They know the X's and O's. They know how to coach football. But being a head coach just overwhelmed them with everything else and all the other responsibilities that they have. And some of them are far more comfortable as an assistant coach with a portfolio and hands-on with the players all day, every day, and not having to worry about the other stuff that head coaches these days have to worry about. And the head coach will have to worry about a hell of a lot more than he needs to worry about if the club's not set up right to support the coaching system that exists. There are a lot of things that some head coaches take responsibility for that they shouldn't, or they shouldn't be allowed to take responsibility for that, or they shouldn't. It shouldn't be up to them to do these types of things, but it does. But that goes up into the makeup of the club as well. So Newcastle Knights, they've got to think very smart about that. But there's good candidates out there. The plenty of assistants out there that are looking for a job. I don't know that there are any NRL coaches without a job at the moment who's not coaching at the moment. The most likely name, I suppose, is Brad Arthur, who's re-signed in the UK Super League.
Well, Justin Holbrook's the one who they're saying is favourite for this job.
Well, Perth went to Malmaninga, who hasn't coached for 20 years. I mean, he's coached Origin, but he hasn't coached for 20 years. So it's not easy. It's not easy to go out and find a head coach. That's why I get surprised sometimes where the media's touting that this coach is under pressure and that coach is under pressure. I'm saying, well, that's fine, but what are you going to replace them with? Who are you going to replace them with? And is that person going to build the club that you need or in the likeness that you want? So big decision for the Newcastle Knights. Justin Holbrook has had experience. He was at the Gold Coast Titans. He's now working at the Roosters system and contributing there, and he's done his grounding. He's coached a number of junior rep teams and junior pathways teams. He's probably more an attacking bent, if that's what the Newcastle Knights would like, and I'm sure that's what Andrew Johns would like them to be. But it's not just the coach, it's a coaching team, it's a philosophy, it's a strategy, it's culture, it's all sorts of things that you've got to take into account. So, big decision for them. And I feel sorry for Adam O'Brien because I don't think the problem at the Newcastle Knights was the head coach. I don't think there's any one individual you can blame for the results that they've had or the fall off in results that they've had. But, certainly they need to think long and hard. Is Peter Parr is he now the CEO? Is he? Yeah,
he's the boss. Yeah,
he's now the.
And Chris James is the rugby league.
Yeah, okay. Well,
boss.
Peter's very experienced. I think he'll have a handle on what they're looking for, and I don't think he'll rush into anything too quickly. I think they've put a committee together to select the next coach, have they?
Yep, it includes Michael Hagan.
Right, former coach. So, it's not easy. It's a very, very big decision. That's why when you get a good one, you've got to hold on to them.
That was AskGus. Thanks to Tab. For the best time in sport, Tab has the best app in sport. Tab, we're on.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Ampol Power Surge, powering Australia's own sporting nation. Gus, your top 3 greatest aerial exponents. Because that is such a focal point of the game now.
Yeah.
I mean, the Roosters are just, with Nwangani Tawasi and Tupou and Coates from Melbourne and Lomax and...
Well, they don't come any better than those, do they? They don't come any better than those. And as the game's gone through the generations, that's become more of a focal point because it was the way to score tries. Defences became a lot better. So the ability, to practice the kick, the crossfield kick like that and land it where it does, and the strategy of where you kick to and all of that. But, the ones you've just mentioned there are the best we've seen. I'm trying to think back in the old days. It never really happened a lot in the old days. Just used to call it the old up and under.
When did it start? Like when did the kicking to the wingers for
Jack
tries
Gibson
start?
No, it didn't really start for the wingers. It was the bomber Peard, Johnny Peard.
Yes.
Remember the bomber?
Yep.
Johnny Peard used to put up these little mini bombs and Ray Price would go through and jump up and catch it. I'm pretty sure is where it started. That's my first knowledge of this sort of thing. There was a classic try scored by Graham Langlands in a test match, which I think they pulled back, ruled forward. I think Dennis Ward kicked crossfield for Graham Langlands once when it leapt up and caught a bomb.
Gee.
It's going way, way back, isn't it?
I mean, I kind of remember Lottie Takiri back in the early 2000s sort of started taking these cross kicks and scoring tries.
Yeah, maybe not really.
But it wasn't like a go-to play.
Israel Folau was probably probably the Melbourne Storm was the influence there, and their association with the Melbourne down there, and probably thought part of the DNA of their club that they want to create is an affiliation with catching the high ball and the kicking and. They work closely with AFL coaches down there to help their players. Billy Slater will tell you all about that. Catching the high ball, Israel Folau was a revelation at the time that he started it.
So much so that he went to the AFL himself.
So he got recruited by the AFL. Go and play for GWS. What a disaster that was. What an absolute disaster.
Not in his bank balance.
Yeah, and then we stopped him coming back for salary cap reasons. We do some funny things in rugby league.
It's a funny game, someone once told me.
Yeah, it's a funny game.
Have you got three? Have you got three aerial exponents for our Ampol power surge?
Well, I'm going to go with Israel Folau because he's probably the best exponent early on that sort of gave it its gravitas. Coates is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. The other boy, Warbrick's a very good one.
Oh, he's outstanding.
Nwanganisa Utawazi is outstanding. Ali Couture is terrific. Jeremiah Nanai is a terrific kick chaser and catcher. Jared Croker used to be a great kick chaser and catcher. There's none more aggressive than the boy from Parramatta. What you said his name earlier. What was his name?
Lomax. You know who else takes his fair share of catches is Liam Martin.
Liam Martin, yeah. See, sometimes it's easier to kick. They land the kicks on the opposition halves and 5/8 because they're shorter. Rather than kick towards the wingers, because sometimes they're up against taller wingers or what have you. Or your wingers can't catch.
Do you know one of the best catches I've ever seen was Origin 2 last year at the MCG, Lomax, in the right corner. Yeah. He was suspended in midair forever.
He's absolutely freakish. Absolutely freakish. He's probably not as spectacular as Xavier Coates. Xavier Coates looks like he's got that AFL training in him. The way he gets his knees into their back and rests up on their shoulders, and he can get up to an enormous height. But for sheer consistency of how he chases the ball, navigates his way through all the escorts, and then comes up with impossible catches, not just the ones he scores off, but then can offload them, catch the ball and offload it or tap it back and all that. Lomax is outstanding. I'll go with Israel Folau and Lomax.
You can have three.
Three? Okay. Well, I'll put Coates in as the Coates.
Oh, Coates has got to be in there. Yeah. I thought he'd be number one.
Well, Israel Folau was the first.
Okay. Well, he's the OG, as they say.
Well, the AFL haven't come and recruited Xavier Coates, have they? First time I saw Xavier Coates play, I think it was in an under-17s for Queensland against New South Wales. He was the winger for Queensland, and he was the best player on the field from here to Mars. I have never seen one player, a winger, dominate a junior representative game like he did, and he played on the wing. And I come home, I said, there's a kid I just watched play called Xavier Coates. When we checked out, Broncos had him on contract forever, but he was unbelievable. How did he leave Brisbane to go to Melbourne? How did they do that?
Well, the Broncos were struggling at the time.
Were they?
They'd come off, they won the Spoon.
What a good get. What a great athlete.
And his overall game has evolved. Not just the aerial stuff and the magical put-downs, but coming out of yardage, he's amongst the best wingers in the game.
Him?
He's a giant.
Have you ever stood alongside him?
He's a giant.
Massive.
I think I told you. I walked into Combank the other week and the Melbourne blokes had got off the bus. And, mate, Eli Katoa, he is the biggest man.
I was in the lift. I had to go down to Melbourne. We called the Melbourne Rooster game a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And we called it down in Melbourne, so we like to go to the ground. So went down to Melbourne. I actually got in the lift with Eli Couture, and I knew him as a young fella at the Warriors, and very shy, very humble, doesn't say too many words, but standing alongside of him, he'd got so much bigger than what I remembered him.
Massive.
He was massive. Like fans and media and all that, so-and-so missed a tackle on him, or so-and-so missed a tackle on him, or he missed his one-on tackle. You should see the size of these
Mate,
blokes.
they'd be jumping out of the way.
And don't get me started on, tackle techniques and all this sort of stuff as well, because some of these blokes are just impossible to tackle without protecting yourself when you do it. And if you don't protect yourself, you hurt yourself. I don't think the people who make our rules and
don't
adjudicate our rules, the people who do this, I should stand them out there at training and get someone to run at them.
Just cue up Gus's standing ovation just to calm him down from Monday night.
And the bloke down the end there recently re-signing with the Bulldogs till 2031.
Great stuff. All right, that is our Ampol Power Surge.
Serenity Thursday. Serenity now.
Now, this is the longest podcast we've ever done, but it's great stuff, and we've still got our best to come because we haven't previewed the finals yet.
All right. How long have we been going?
About 3.5 hours. A break, and then we'll have a look.
Took me that long to drive in here this morning. The traffic was horrendous.
The roads are underwater.
Where does all this rain come from? The roads are covered in water.
Linwood Golf Club has just dried out, and it was spectacular early in the week, and now it's going to be a mud heap again. A break, and back with more.
Fans always ask, Lozza, what was the best era of league? And I tell them, nothing beats the line-breaking, flick-passing, goose-stepping, bankers-flying, turbo-try-scoring, origin drought-breaking, simply the best era of footy we're in right now. And with more market stats and insights, it's easy to enjoy the best era in footy with the best app in footy.
Tab. We're on.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
On the subject of rain, I hope it clears up for the Roosters versus Sharks NRLW game from Gosford that you and I are going to cover this evening. You'll see it live and free on 9 and 9 now.
Looking forward to that.
Rooster Sharks, Eels Bulldogs, Broncos Cowboys, good game that one, Titans Raiders, Tigers Warriors, Knights and Dragons. Final regular round, and then we're into women's finals as well from next week. Every game exclusive on 9 and 9 now. Week 1 of the finals. Every game on the Wild Water Sports. 7:50 from Amy Park on Friday night. Melbourne versus Canterbury. A bit of scuttle that there's changes. Toby Sexton looks like he's going to get a recall. I don't know what you're going to confirm for us here, but it'll be a great story. Potentially coming back on the bench. So, Jerome Hughes is out again. He had an operation. Wishart goes back into halfback. Pappy's out with concussion. Nick Meaney is at fullback. Jack Howarth is on the extended bench. There's a chance he'll come in, but we're not so sure about how well that's going to pan out. And Big Nelson's been suspended again. Whew. And as we mentioned, Sexton possibly to play. Don't know what you're going to tell us. And Jacob Carraz is on the extended bench. You'd dearly love to have him back. So the Storm versus the Bulldogs. We were down there a few weeks ago. Canterbury had a couple of tries disallowed late and may well have won that game in a very tightly fought outcome. So the winner goes to the prelim. The loser gets a second chance.
Yeah, big bonus for the winner of this game, particularly with both sides suffering from injuries at the moment. And I'm not quite sure. Well, we're certainly anticipating some changes to the starting lineup for the Melbourne Storm, but that's their business down there. And there are still potentially changes to the Bulldogs. Marcelo Montoya didn't make it, unfortunately. We hope that he would be right in future weeks. Obviously, Bronson Xerri's out with concussion, so Anari Tuala comes in, has been playing on the wing. Jacob Kiraz has gone to Melbourne, but still faces a fitness test. So Blake Wilson's been named on the wing, which led to a discussion in the coaches' meeting about how the makeup of their bench should be, and a discussion around possibly Reid Marnie or Toby Sexton. I think in that role, given that the week before Bronson Xerri, an outside back, got injured, and that meant Bailey Hayward had to go from hooker to 5'8", and Matt Burton to the centres to cover that role. So it's impossible to cover everything. The discussion was that maybe Reid Marnie is just covering one position, which is hooker, from the bench, and strategically it might help to get him on later in the game as well. But when they moved Bailey from hooker to 5'8", it had a lot of effect on the communication, particularly in defence around the middle of the field, and they thought that was too drastic a move to cover the outside back position or a halves position if someone went down. So it's not about the individuals, and it's not about form or anything like that. It's more about what coverage you can get from your bench to cover more options. And they just felt a little bit uncomfortable with that coverage last week of Bailey having to go from hooker out to 5'8", and Burton to centres to do there. So they're still discussing it, but the idea was Reid Marnie covers one position from the bench, Toby Sexton can cover the halves and can cover dumbing half as well if something happens there, and that helps a little bit with coverage for other position. Harry Hayes has been named on an extension bench, so Harry Hayes and Carraz are still to undergo fitness tests, and the discussion that I heard was around best coverage from the bench, a Reid Marnie or a Toby Sexton, trying to limit the number of changes they've got to make if an outside back went down, and particularly now that we're like it's different looking back line there now with Blake Wilson and Ari Tuala, Jethro Rinakima, who's a teenager. It's a big ask for them fellas going down to Melbourne, but you're playing the best on their home ground, so it's a wonderful experience for our fellas, and we're delighted to be in the finals again, so looking forward to it.
All right, Storm $1.50, Bulldogs $2.60, the latest betting on tab as of Thursday morning when we are recording this. 2 games on Saturday, the first of which kicks off at 4:05 p.m. We're on air on 9 in fact, we're on air for women's football throughout the day, but 3:30 our coverage of this game starts. Warriors versus the Panthers. Kurt Capewell goes from the back row to the centres because poor old Rocco Berry's out for the season with a shoulder injury. He's had no luck. Lika Halasima gets a starting spot. Wade Egan returns. Jackson Ford returns. For the Panthers, Brian To'o and Liam Martin are back after being given an extended break to overcome some niggling injuries. But the big news, Gus, is that Mitch Kenny has a hamstring and won't line up for the Panthers. Warriors $3.20. Penrith $1.36. Winner continues. Loser leaves the country.
Yeah, it's a long season, isn't it? And you've got to have luck along the way, and bad luck can come at you at any time. Thunderbolts, we call them, absolute thunderbolts. They rested their players 2 weeks ago and to get them ready for the finals, and all of a sudden a thunderbolt, Mitch Kenny's unavailable. Good player, young Luke Summerton. He knows the system well, and, obviously the key to them will be Cleary and Dylan Edwards at the back, and then their hard-working forward pack, and their finals experience, which is incredibly important at this time of year. The Warriors have had a good season. It's been a little bit up and down in the second half of the season, but they did lose their halfback in young Metcalf. They did lose their front rower in Barnett. Fisher Harris was in and out a little bit towards the back end of the year. Wade Egan's been in and out a little bit towards the back end of the year. There's been some, and some of their young fellas, this is a long season for them first up and now into finals football. I think at home, and as you say, they're in sudden death. In these games, they're absolutely emptying out. Like every game's your last. If you get it wrong, there's no chance to come back Monday and review it and get it right. And that's the thing about sudden death football. You go through 24 weeks of home and away football where you turn up every week, you get into the roller coaster of up and down, and you come in every week and you review it. It was a win, was a loss, and what have we got to improve and get ready for the next opposition? Yeah, we got it wrong, come back in and review it and get it right and get it wrong. Then you get to the end of the season and you get into games where there's no tomorrow. Loser leaves the country. And so the loser of this game heads off on their end-of-season trip and the winner carries on.
The winner plays the loser of Friday night's game.
Yes. So, here you've just got to bank on the score of experience and the fact that they've got Nathan Cleary and they're very experienced at this time of year. They've had a little rest last week, and they even had a rest last week. I mean, they went around on one leg and scored 40 against the Dragons and made it look pretty easy. It was kind of like a half bye for it was a little warm-up game. But I'm looking at the conditions over there in Auckland. There is anticipated a little bit of rain. It can get very cold and wet there, and the Warriors, they won't lie down. They'll have a big home crowd. This is the home ground advantage that they've earned, so they will make it tough for them. And with James Fisher-Harris, the captain, being a former Panther, I'm sure he doesn't want to go down without a fight.
There's 4 former Panthers in the Warriors team.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to tip Panther, obviously, but it'll be close. There won't be much in it. I just think their experience will get them home, and in the end, the kicking game of Cleary will be too much for them, and they should be able to get it out. But that's a big loss, Mitch Kenny. Hopefully he's not out for too long.
So from what I'm reading, it's like a week-to-week thing. But maybe the extra rest might enable him to be fit for week 2 should they go through.
Did he play against the Dragons?
Yeah, he came off with 20-odd minutes to go.
Yeah,
and Schneider came on and played.
That's not a good sign. Hamstrings can be very delicate. Very delicate, just depending on the grade. Anyway, they'll handle it.
By the way, so Mitch Barnett was injured in round 12. When he was ruled out for the rest of the year, the Warriors had won 9 and lost 2. Pretty influential. Sharks Roosters, 7:50 kickoff. You'll see all the coverage on 9 from 7:30. That's from Shark Park. What a game. Braden Trindle's back after missing last week. He partners Nico Hines in the halves. He thought he was going to miss the game, Nico, but the Bulldogs gave him a leg up. He's back.
Yep.
He's in there at halfback.
And rightly so, too.
Britton Nikora is on the extended bench, having been suspended for 3 weeks, but it is expected he'll come into the team. And it's the same 17 for Trent Robinson's Roosters, who have been slaying them with their attacking game in recent times, and in fact haven't conceded a point in the second half of their last 2 games, Gus. I have to say, I thought the Sharks were making up the numbers, but gee, they impressed me on Saturday night against Canterbury.
They were really good. That was the first half an hour of that game was really finals quality. It was really good from both sides. In a game where neither side could improve or go backwards on the ladder, they attacked it with plenty of gusto, and Sharks got a little bit better of the first half. Other than that, the game was pretty. I think the first 20 minutes was 0-0. I think the 20 minutes after half time was 6-6. The last 20 minutes was 0-0. And in a game like that, for both teams to go the full 80 minutes and belt away as they did, it was just the Sharks got a little bit better at the back end of the game. It was also the first time all year that their back 5, Kennedy, Katoa, Ramien, Iro and Mulatalo, had all been on the field at the one time together.
Really?
First time all year that they actually had their back 5 on the field, and that's been their strength in previous years as well. They've obviously had some injury concerns along the way. The Roosters, well, they're an incredible make-up team. There's so much talent in that team, and the ability. What they did to the Storm down in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, where they scored 40 points to 0 in the second half. I mean, nobody does that. Who have we seen do that in recent times? No one does that. They score points other teams just can't score, and they're on a bit of a roll at the moment and coming good at the right end of the year. I think on this podcast last week I never said it would happen, but I said it wouldn't surprise me if Penrith and Roosters made it through to a grand final. I think there's any possible combination here, and at the moment they're 2 of the teams that are in the best form in the Panthers and the Roosters, and they're coming in pretty strong. Shark at Shark Park is always a handful. There was something I really liked about their performance last week, the physicality of it and the commitment to the 80 minutes. I'm really keen to see how they go. They've got a big bench. Look at this bench. Kafusi, Talakai, Hazelden, Hamlin, Ueli. That's a big bench. Big, strong bench. Don't know what happens if halves go down or outside backs go down. I suppose Talakai can cover in the outside backs. What happens if halves go down? Don't know. Yeah.
Maybe Atkinson squeezes onto the bench somewhere.
What happens if a hooker goes down? Not wishing ill on anyone, but you've just got to be able to cover all these sorts of things. That's the hard part of benches. That's a big, strong bench, isn't it?
I know the rain's supposed to clear up, but it will be slippery and wet down at
It's a Shark
Park.
The Bermuda Triangle, mate. Anything can happen.
It doesn't help the Roosters' attacking game.
Oh, no, the Roosters can score in any weather. I don't think weather worries them. That's what makes them different to everybody else. That's what makes them unique, because they score in any weather under any conditions. I don't think it worries them. There is an inhibition about their play and a confidence about their play that gets them points no matter what the situation. They can score from kicks. They can score from the run. They can score from offloads and flick passes. They can score with sheer power. They can score with speed. They've got the crossfield kicks. They've got the grubber kicks. They've got everything. They've got Tedesco. Again, I'm not going to be surprised either way. I'm going to tip the Rooster, because I think Roosters and Panthers could go deep in this competition. But I was really impressed with the Sharks last week. I thought they were really good.
All right.
And, yeah.
Sharks $2.15, Roosters $1.70 favourites for that game on Saturday night, which brings us to potentially one of the great afternoons of rugby league. GIO Stadium, 4:05 kickoff. You'll see it all on Nine's Wide World of Sports. The Raiders against the Broncos. I just cannot wait to get there. It's going to be a sea of green, and it really could be one of the great afternoons. So, Ricky rested the bulk of his team last week. They've all come back in. Now, Josh Papali'i, as many people would know, suffered an ankle injury at training last Friday, yet he has still been named. We're not sure about his status. Hunt and Walters will remain in the halves. Adam Reynolds still sidelined, as is Ezra Mam. Gemmet Shimasaki has been recalled after a week in purgatory. Incredible to think that the halves have been missing for the Broncos over the last month, and they've been scoring points for fun. But they're up against Canberra at home. They've been beaten once at GIO Stadium this year. That was against Canterbury earlier in the year. And they are the minor premiers, and they will be supported by a raucous home crowd, Gus. So it's just going to be a great afternoon for footy.
Certainly will. We've spoken about the Raiders earlier in this podcast, about the season that they've had, and there's no fluke to what they've done. I do remember they went across to play the Warriors in the first game of the year over in Las Vegas, and they came back and people were questioning how would they travel and come back or whatever they do. They played the Broncos in round 2 down there in Canberra, and I think from memory it was a physical assault. I think they just absolutely physically assaulted the Broncos out of it. So I don't think the Broncos will be under any illusion about what's coming their way on Sunday. Ricky Stewart's got his finals mentality, and I think physicality will be a big part of his game. The key to these games is who gets their football on and who can deal with it when the opposition is having their good periods. You're going to go through good periods and bad periods in these games. And the styles are so different. Sharks have got a different style to the Roosters, and the Warriors have got a different style to the Panthers, and the Storm have got a different style to the Bulldogs, and obviously, you know, the Canberra Raiders have got a different style to the Broncos. So who gets their style of game on for how long? And when the balance shifts, you know, when the momentum comes and the penalties come and the possession shifts, who's able to withstand the good periods of the other side? Who can be comfortable being uncomfortable? Who can handle it when the opposition is playing well and having a run of luck and a run of possession? And it'll come down to the ability to defend those moments, and then when you get your opportunities, be able to score points. This is the test. This is why we're looking for the best team this year, and any one of these teams can do it. I'm going with the Raiders simply because I think they deserve to be picked. I think with the season that they've had in minor premiers, I think it'd be a little bit insulting to say, well, they can't win their first semi-final at home. So I'm going to go with them and probably cheer for them a little bit. I think they deserve to win a semi-final in front of their home fans in week 1. Having said that, they're up against the most unpredictable and physically dangerous side in the competition who, if we talk about talent, it's oozing with talent, individual talent. Any one of these players, Reece Walsh, Karapani, Staggs, Shibasaki, Mariner, Billy Walters even, you know, like these fellas, you know, Payne Haas and Piakura and Ricky, and they can all do something for themselves. You can defend the team good, but the individual beats you. You can be defending good and they will just break you for no reason. Some of the things they do is indefensible. It's not a system. I wouldn't say they have a system. They've just got sheer great talent and athleticism and speed. But I'm going to back the Raider to get it right. I think the Raider have had the perfect preparation. They've had 3 buys in the last 12 weeks of competition. They then got a 4th buy because they rested their players for the last round. They're pretty much at full strength. They've been on a roll. They've won the minor premiership by a long way. They deserve, I think, to be favourites, and I would like to see them win. But it's a great game, isn't it? They're 4 great matchups.
Sensational. Raiders $1.67, Broncos $2.20. So leave the Friday night game out of the equation. Gus is tipping the Panthers to go through and play the loser of Storm versus Bulldogs. And you are tipping the Roosters to go through and play the Broncos in week 2, which would send the Raiders into a preliminary final at home. How's that all look for you?
There's a lot to play out yet, Matthew.
Well, it could go either way.
A lot to play out yet. A lot to play. I think all the games will be different. Yeah, I just hope it's, they're all going to be different under different conditions.
You'll see it all on 9. Thanks, Gus. What a bumper podcast. We've covered plenty of ground.
Goodbye, Matthew.
I'll We'll see you tonight at Gosford. That's 6 tackles with Gus for week 1 of the finals. Enjoy the footy on 9 across the weekend. We'll see you next week.